You need the marketplace to really drive the winners. Based on what I read, I think Anthropic's going to be a winner. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take? My name is Scott Porad, and I am here with my friendly co-host,
Brad Hefta-Gaub.
And Brad. Today we have a little AI business check-in.
Yeah.
I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal this week called Anthropic is on track to turn a profit much faster than OpenAI. Financial documents from both companies show the different approaches they're taking to the AI boom. And if I just look in here, I just read a few key facts. Anthropic has really focused on business users because of the capabilities of their Claude chatbot encoding, and actually expects to break even in 2028. OpenAI, oh my goodness, and this is just mind blowing. They expect their losses to swell to 74 billion in 2028, and doesn't expect to be profitable until 2030, and expects to burn through 14 times as much cash. Crazy sauce. They're just taking different approaches. AI expects thinner margins. It is investing more in things like chips and technology. It just has a more aggressive approach, a more risky approach. And let's see here, just scrolling through, what does it say about Anthropic's strategy? Anthropic is taking a more cautious approach, with costs growing more at a pace with revenue. They're focused on increasing sales among corporate customers and avoiding, this is key, avoiding getting into image and video generation, which is much more expensive in terms of a cost. So very interesting.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I have a couple thoughts on that. First of all, my first thought is that this is just the battle that's going on here for AI is really, really interesting. And Anthropic and OpenAI are the two small fish, right? And
Hmm.
you got the big players of Meta, Microsoft, and Google that are really aggressively out there. And it feels to me a little bit like um, Anthropic is. I think it's fair to say they appear to be taking the more conservative approach,
Hmm.
and I think you're right that kind of OpenAI is kind of just trying a swing for the fences, get big fast, you know, scare people by kind of trying to act like they're the biggest possible player in the space and try to cover as much, just flood the zone kind of thing. Um, and the stakes are high enough that, and Sam Altman is a good enough salesperson that, um, they're, he's making the way of it. But from a sort of like the business, do the numbers pencil out? Like things have got to get gigantic, right? So, good example of this is, and we record this when we record it, and it gets released a little bit later. So any of the numbers that we're throwing out now are going to be, could be old news by the time that this episode comes out. But at the same time, it's on trend, so it kind of doesn't matter. But the recent, Sam Altman's been, tweeting that, they expect to hit a $20 billion forward annual run rate by the end of this year. But at the same time, they've got $1.4 trillion of, capital commits, right? So it's just like you can't make $1.4 trillion of capital commits pencil out on a. You can't even make that pencil out on $100 billion a year business. You gotta get well north of that. And so it's huge numbers we're talking about, and it's huge amounts of, you know, I would say risk because the reward is so great. So that's my first thought, is that I 100% agree that OpenAI appears to be taking a much more swing for the fences, everything AI approach versus Anthropic, which really seems to be focused on business users, especially coding. So
Mhm.
that, I think, is accurate statement. And I didn't know about the video and image generation, but it totally syncs with what I happen to know as a user of the two. But I hadn't even thought about, oh, that's right. Anthropic's not really doing image and video generation. Um, Here's another really interesting piece of news recently that is very related to what you just said. Cursor, another independent company, which embeds all the models, right? So you can hit Claude, you can hit OpenAI, um, Gemini. They just released in the last week or so their own model, right? So they released a
Mm.
model, but you know what? It's not a foundation model that they built. It's a repackaging of a Chinese open source model, and they packaged it as their default model. And they believe that it outperforms Claude. And Claude was it was far outperforming on coding tasks. So this, I think, is another interesting play where it's like, okay, so Cursor is very much a targeted application for software developers. That's what their focus is. They're not a foundation model. They're not trying to build models. They're just trying to build this world-class application for developers to use. And even they are picking and choosing which of these foundation models to use. And going with an open source model uh, was a bold and interesting move on their part. Um, so there's just a lot of churn happening uh, in this space, and I think that move by Cursor is very telling about Anthropic, right? Like, if Cursor's not like, if Cursor can use this open source model and outperform Claude, that puts that puts Anthropic's business significantly at risk.
They're commoditizing
Yeah,
those things, and it's going to be a race to the bottom
yeah,
unless some foundation model, can have a demonstrable improvement in quality, right? I mean, if you're a Cursor and you can use a model that's 20% less effective, but it saves you 50% of your cost, you're going to do it.
of course.
So there's something else I saw in this article about OpenAI and Anthropic that was the first thing that stuck out to me, honestly. So I've been in a number of startups, and I've been at startups that have been disciplined, and I've been at startups that have gotten out over their skis. And what I mean out over their skis is they're spending far ahead of the revenue.
Yep.
And typically, it is the case people spend ahead of the revenue because they think, well, we're going to grow into the cost,
Yep.
right?
Totally.
We're investing and we're going to grow. And I've been part of a few situations where that has not happened. You get then you sort of head into the proverbial downward spiral of layoffs, and then
Yeah.
can't deliver, and then more layoffs, and then you're just kaput, right? And I've also been part of companies that have been disciplined and not gotten out over their skis. Or when they've gotten out over them, they haven't got too far, so they've pulled it back a little bit. I don't know. When I saw that, I just saw Anthropic being disciplined.
Yeah.
And I believe that a key for success, at least as a startup, but probably overall in the business world, is discipline.
Yep.
There are always going to be pressures pulling you and pushing you in different directions. There's going to be shiny new objects. And the companies that I've been a part of that were able to stay focused and stick to their knitting and say, this is what we do and we do it well, tended to be more effective and
Yeah.
more successful. And so when I see a story like this, and I think to myself, well, I would prefer to invest in Anthropic than invest in OpenAI, because I bet what's going to happen with OpenAI is at some point in the next few years, they're going to flame out. Or if not flame out, have a big dumpster fire.
Well, okay. So another thing that happened, again, this will be, a little bit of history when people hear this, but there was some kerfuffle on the internet this week where um, OpenAI, which is a private company, not a public company, so
Mhm.
it's not like we could get to see their financials, but what they've shared and what their CFO shared on Twitter was something the effect of, yeah, we've got this $1.4 trillion of capital spend, and it'd be really good if, and they used the term, it'd be great if the Trump administration with the commitment to make sure that U.S. wins the AI race, if they would backstop our spend. And the word backstop specifically was used. And of course, people turned that into, wait a second, are you asking for a bailout here? And, David Sachs, the AI czar on Trump's administration, had to kind of come out and like, no, this is not, we're not doing backups. We're not doing backstops for this company. Oh, that wasn't the word we meant to use. Right. But, I heard on the All In podcast, I heard David Sachs talk about this. He's like, look, man, this is one of the most vibrant marketplaces we've seen in a long time. Like this is cutting edge stuff, but there are so many players in this space, right? You got the Mag 7 all playing in this space, but you got these two other like really big small startups, small relative to the Mag 7, but they're huge and they're all fighting it out. And we got that doesn't even include XAI. So we got XAI, we got OpenAI, we got Anthropic, we got all the Mag 7. And so this is a very active and you know competitive marketplace. And so, yeah, so what if OpenAI gets over their skis and blows up? That's not gonna that'll be one out of a half a dozen companies in a space that doesn't make it. And they're a private company, so the investors in them are, you know, hopefully are they're all big boys and they knew what they were getting into when they invested in a risky company.
I agree with you 100%. I don't have any problem with OpenAI blowing up. In fact, I think when you see a market like this, you need, what do they call it, creative destruction. You need the marketplace to really drive the winners, to drive the, to flush out the losers and drive the winners. And I don't know, based on this article, based on what I read, I think Anthropic's going to be a winner.
Well, or at least not the first loser.
He's not the first loser. Um, because they're actually trying to build a, I mean, I could be wrong about this, but it feels to me they're more trying to build a business than trying to just do a, we saw this during the first dot-com boom, the eyeballs land grab,
Well,
right?
yeah. So, a couple other things that also I think are interesting that have might come out this week that I think are kind of worth noting. A couple weeks ago, you and I were talking about this, maybe on an episode of the pod that hasn't been released yet. But you were asking like, "Hey, how come Siri sucks so bad? Why isn't Siri at least as good as any of the other LLM models out there?" And what happened last week? Apple announced a deal with Google Gemini to power Siri. So Apple's going to be using Gemini to power Siri now. And so to me, that's another similar example of those that keep to their own knitting. Apple has been very like cautious slash deliberate about what they're spending in AI. And I think it's really interesting that they, you know, partnered with Google instead of just throwing all of their own resources at this. They're the one of the Mag 7 that aren't burning their free cash flow on infrastructure deployment.
Right. That's very interesting. I mean, that's the same play that Apple did, for instance, with search, right? They did deals with Yahoo and Bing and
Totally.
Google, et cetera. That's kind of their playbook. Who do you think pays in that deal? Do you think Google is paying Apple, or do you think Apple is paying Google?
Uh, it, I I think it tends to be like a kind of a little bit of both, you know? I think in that Siri deal, I have to imagine that Apple's paying Google, but um there must be like some, you know, clawbacks where they don't have to pay if, for certain types of things.
I don't know. In the search world, right? Google monetizes those searches, so they
Exactly.
pay Apple.
They paid Apple for that.
And so, I
But
mean, this
there's
is
not as much direct in, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't think
yeah,
there's as
there's no
much direct monetization from the LLM's voice recognition feature.
right. Yeah, fascinating. Well, I'm excited to get to use Gemini on my phone.
Yeah, last time we were talking about this, every time I said the word Siri, it lit my phone up and I had to tell it, stop. No, I'm not talking to you, Siri. Um, so that's one thing that's happened. I think it's really, I mean, this is it's just such an interesting space. And again, like it's, it's fascinating times we live in right now.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it for sure. Uh, do you remember Yahoo Pipes?
Maybe?
Well, then you might remember a series of tools came out like IFTTT and Zapier and
Yeah, yeah,
Make.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. If this, then
Those were
that.
just, yep.
Zapier's still around. Zapier, hey, talk about people sticking to their knitting. Zapier's a fantastic example of a bootstrapped company. Never took any venture funding and just like crushing it.
Um, Well, Yahoo Pipes was sort of the precursor to Zapier. Yahoo Pipes was a thing where you could like visually drag and drop pipes.
Mhm,
Each little, and the pipes didn't do anything, but the little, the Y's and T's and things, the pipe shapes did. And
mhm,
you could like create these little workflows, and it was all drag and drop. And the workflows could do things like read in an RSS feed and then send emails based on it or whatever, all sorts of stuff like that. And then if this then that and Zapier, those things came along, it was the same kind of thing. You had these connectors, you could connect them up and it could, based on this, do that. But I just saw today that Google released Google Flows. You want to know what Google Flows can do?
Uh, send stuff to an LLM.
They're now using LLMs to do stuff like this. I mean, it was really, I mean, they're just doing great work over at Google. Let's see here. They can notify me about urgent emails, can catch up on news. I can get a pre-meeting brief. I can get a daily summary of unread emails. Can notify me about emails from key people. So, I mean, they're using these expensive AI to do stuff that Yahoo could do in 1997.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
I don't know when Yahoo Pipes really came out, but it was probably about 97. I mean, let's just Google that real quick. I should really go to Yahoo. Can you even go? Does Yahoo even exist anymore? Indeed, it does. Yahoo Pipes. Just searching for it. See what comes up here.
Oh, Wikipedia's first article, of course.
Yeah, it was launched in 2007 and it was shut down in 2015.
There you go. Um, hey, speaking of Wikipedia, have you heard of Grokipedia?
Is Grokipedia Elon Musk's
Yeah,
version of
yeah.
Elon's view of the world?
Well, I mean, it's Grok-based Wikipedia, and
What's that
you
mean?
know,
Grok-based Wikipedia. I don't even know what that
I mean,
means.
they're basically, building out. I mean, I think that your characterization of it is Elon Musk's version of the truth of the world. Well, but that's certainly not the way that he would describe it.
Oh, it's an Grok. So I'm reading on Wikipedia what Grokipedia is. It is an AI generated online encyclopedia. That's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, right.
When it's just a search box.
Yeah,
Hmm. What should I type in that search box? I'm going to type in my own name. Of course, that's what you always do. Now it's giving me 85 pages of names. My name is yielded 1,010 results, but none of them are my name. They're other people's names. That's not what I
exactly.
wanted. But this is actually kind of interesting. So what this is telling me is there are no articles in this thing. It is just AI generated like real time. Oh, this is interesting. Up at the top of this page, I clicked on one of these guys, Scott Wolf, who apparently is an American actor. He played Bailey Salinger in Party of Five. It says fact checked by
Yeah,
Grok 2
yeah,
weeks ago.
yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Very
Yeah, it's
interesting.
so there you go. So there's more news in AI is AI generated Wikipedia.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. It's a fun time to have a bucket of popcorn and be watching it all unfold.
Right? Right? I mean, unless say you're worried about white collar job attrition uh um and you're a young person or you're uh closely aligned with a young person struggling to find work. in this new economy, or all these different things,
or if you care about climate change.
or if you care about climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Did we?
Yeah. If we solve nothing today.
We saw, we got well. So, what did we learn? We learned that Anthropic is being more business focused in building their business. OpenAI is swinging for the fences. There's massive amounts of churn going on. We've got our big giant bags of popcorn to watch it all, and it's fine. It's fine, as flames are around us.
This is fine. Yeah, we learned. Look, and I think we also learned something else. The big players. We talked about Apple and Gemini. Ultimately, the big players have such. It's not like monopoly power, but they've got such power in the marketplace that they're going to get a huge chunk of share,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, just look. I'm going to just use a concrete example from where I'm at TaskRabbit. We didn't buy everybody an OpenAI license for ChatGPT. We bought everybody a Gemini license. Because
Oh,
why? Because we're a Google Workspace company, and it's just right there, and it's integrated with everything. And in fact, it's been making me think, and this would be hard to do, that we should force people at our company that we should stop using Slack and start using Google Chat, because Gemini can see all of our Google Chat, and you can query your chats and get stuff.
by the way, now you just like one more piece of news that I heard was, and I don't have the exact numbers here, but yeah, like number of tokens being processed and generated by Gemini have just been skyrocketing over the last 6 months. So they have come back. I mean, they were supposedly nowhere, and they have come roaring back. Like they're by far, the fastest growing of the foundation models. So don't don't write Google off.
I think that's because I have a hypothesis on that. I could be wrong. I was talking to a guy at Microsoft who works on Copilot, and Google has added, they gave you Gemini for free with your Workspace account, and then simultaneously raised the prices of Workspace by $2 a month. So it's free, but we're charging you more.
Yeah, exactly.
Microsoft did not do that. They strategically, this guy told me they strategically, as a competitive thing, decided not to do that. And so I wonder if it's just like it's there, it's in front of people and they can use it. And also Google has released, I don't know if you've seen, if you've just gone to Google and searched, they have this new thing called AI mode,
Oh yeah.
which basically you're not searching anymore, you're just doing an AI prompt. And so they're nudging their customers into that space.
Yeah, for sure. And also, you see another example of like, is OpenAI focused on the right things? They released a version of Chromium browser that's the AI, OpenAI version of the Chromium browser. It's
Mhm.
like, that's not going to last. Like, like
And,
you're going to compete with Google Chrome? Like,
and as, a
no.
mat, as a matter of fact, I have a button up here in the upper right of Chrome now, which
Yep.
uh, goes right to Gemini.
Yeah,
So like
exactly. Right?
this is the same story of the browser, Microsoft Windows and the browser is
Yeah.
Chrome. It isn't quite monopoly power, but Google has frankly, Google and Apple have this footprint that they can push AI on people in a way, push their products on a people that way that nobody else can.
Yep.
I mean, between Android and Chrome and then iOS, it's like that's your game. I think if I'm looking at investing in Anthropic or investing in OpenAI, I'm saying to myself, OpenAI is going to lose. Anthropic's going to build a nice business, and the winners are going to be the major platforms.
Yep. That sounds like a not that controversial of a
Arms,
investment
my
thesis.
well, that is my armchair. I will take my $7 and go put it wherever I can put it. But all right, Brad, this has been fun again.
Yes, as
Little news
always.
roundup, and oh, what do we do?
What do we do? We smash that subscribe button.
And we rate and review.
We get agents. We program our agents to rate and review.
Yeah, we should try that.
All right. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
Talk to you later, Brad.
Bye. This episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon, or at our website at howmanyctospod.com.
And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.